commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, let me thank the organizers of this very timely and crucial conference for having extended the invitation to the Anti-Corruption Commission as well to be part of this conference, because to us this is very, very important and quite relevant. What all of us cannot dispute is the fact that transparency is a very critical requirement for a democratic society that is committed to the principles of good governance. And then for transparency and accountability to be upheld, to be a matter of fact, there is a need for access to information. There is no question about that. And it's as well necessary to take cognizance of the fact that with globalization, the trend has shifted from mere governance to governance. Meaning that with governance, we are talking about an inclusive process of participation of citizens, either as groups or individuals, and it is at all levels of decision-making process. Can you do that when the information is locked out away from you? That becomes not so possible. You will not be able to do that, unfortunately. Surely, with governance, that is none other than a transparent system whereby all stakeholders, and this includes the media as well, must have easy access to information, the information that is for public interest. You see, the problem is that many of us are holding public positions, and that we only talk about holding public positions apparently when it's suiting us. I don't know whether we do really understand what is meant by public positions, unfortunately. But when the very same public wants information from us, we are not accountable to the very same public that we are talking about when we say we are holding public positions. Citizens are entitled to know how they are governed, and they are also entitled to participate in economic, political, cultural, and social decisions-making process. Because this ultimately determines their future destinies. How will they not be part of the very same process? They have the right to know, and they have the right to be informed how the public resources are utilized to improve their livelihoods. That is all what democratic government, that's all what good governance is all about. When that element of providing information is lacking, then a crucial element of good governance, a crucial element of democratic governance is lacking. And then the public have got the right to demand information from the national leadership on any economic or social matter of public interest. Director of Proceedings, I would like this conference which is starting tomorrow, or it has rather started, to take cognizance of the fact that the protection and the promotion of public interest is not something that lies with government alone. And if government thinks that it is the only one that have got that responsibility, then that government is doing injustice to itself. It's not only the government that is entrusted to know what is going on with regard to decisions that are made for the benefit of the public. Rather, civil society, including the media, has a role to play through information sharing with the public. Because normally the media is a conduit to the public. I am saying this because having been now in the position as a director of the Anti-Corruption Commission, I can speak from the position of strength. How important the role that can be played by the media. A lot of things that we're able to successfully investigate is because the media was first and foremost the source of information, because the public itself felt it right to approach the media, and the media exposed, and we stepped in. Hence, access to information does not only affect, when it's denied, does not only affect those who are in the media industry, but even those of us who are tasked with an important responsibility of busting corruption, mismanagement of public resources, ultimately will not be able to function properly and accomplish our mandate as provided for in the law. We will not be able. Further than that, Namibia as a republic is a shining example that is founded on the principles of democracy, the rule of law, and justice for all. Therefore, one cannot imagine a democratic government like ours not to take participatory governance, which includes access to information, very serious. Meaning that for Namibia, the question should not be whether there is a need for a law on access to information, but rather how soon the law should be enacted by our parliament. Because the law is long overdue, unfortunately. Because when information is readily accessible to the public, even the public, or rather citizens, are better suited to make well-informed suggestions and participate in decision-making process. Because they will feel that they are part of the process. They are up to date with what is happening. And access to information surely is a cornerstone for good governance, as I have already said. To us, as an Anti-Corruption Commission, it is an important tool to fight corruption, mismanagement of resources, and diversion of public funds to benefit few individuals. You see, sometimes when you are talking to people out there, they will tell you that, no, I will not do X, Y, Z because you know the media of this country will expose you. And once you are exposed by the media, you are in for high jump by other institutions. They know, people know very well that there's a very important role that is being played by the media and other institutions that provide information. Hence, collective leadership entails disclosure of information. Further, disclosure of information is at the heart of transparency. I can hardly imagine a nation's integrity system without access to information. We can be proud of ourselves as Namibians. We can be proud of our democracy, but when we don't have a law in place that provides for access to information, something, unfortunately, is still lacking. As a leading democracy, as I have already said, this is a prime moment for all of us, and not only you in the media industry, to appeal to our authorities so that our authorities do without delay kick off the process of drafting the law on access to information. Mr. Frederico Links has already highlighted the point that come 2014, Namibia will be among the countries that will be reviewed as to what extent we have complied with the provisions of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. And as we are now, I brought somebody from the United Nations office to come here and do a quick gap analysis. And the immediate questions after they went through our laws that were posed to me were, do you have a law on protection of whistleblowers? The answer was no. Do you have a law on access to information? The answer I gave was no. Do you have a law that provides for illicit enrichment? The answer I gave was no. Then I was told, you rather move now rather than later. Because if you don't move on these issues, notwithstanding that you have got some other laws in place, you are going to lose credit for this country that is hailed as one of the democracies, especially in the region. Hence my humble appeal to the line ministry. I wished my Minister of Information and Communication Technology could be here tonight. And also the chairperson of the Law Reform and Development Commission could be here tonight, so that I could go down to my knees and tell them, please start off the process. Start off the process on the law on access to information, the process on the law on protection of whistleblowers, and also the law that make provision for punishing illicit enrichment. These are very, very crucial laws if we want to fight corruption, if we want to fight mismanagement, and if we want to fight diversion of public resources in this country. We cannot successfully do so when such laws are not in place, unfortunately. Furthermore, give you a scenario of some of the factors that contribute to corruption. And these factors normally are happening behind closed doors, because people know that at the end of the day, no information will be released, because there's nothing that is obliging a public official to release that information. I've heard some of them, when they are reacting to the media practitioners, that no, I'm not accountable to you. But they also forget that media practitioners are members of the public. You see, when people are being appointed, not necessarily on merit, just because somebody is close to someone, the appointing authority, and somebody will be able to sink when the appointing authority says sink, or jump when the appointing authority says jump, and not because this person has got merits to execute the mandate for the position given to that particular person. That is already unfortunate, because that will do injustice to the public, because this person is supposed, in the first place, serve the public, and not the person who has appointed him or her in that particular position. When there is a lack of implementation of positive policies, and there is an ignorance of sound economic principles, and when the public wants to know what's going on here, nobody is ready to provide information. Yet, we are proud of ourselves as being public officers, serving the public, but at the same time, we are not ready to account to the very same public and tell the public that this is what I have done for you thus far, this is what I'm planning to do in the near future, and these are the future strategic planning for the office I am holding. Of course, negligence as well. With lack of access to information, you will not know the negligent manner in the execution of public functions. And then, of course, lack of transparency and accountability. That's general. It's just not there. If we are not inculcating a culture of transparency, a culture of accountability, then we need to forget about good governance. These are central elements of good governance. We cannot argue about that. And then, of course, passive citizens. Passive, that they do not just complain about corruption, they do not complain about mismanagement of resources. When these things are coming up, you find it's only a small group of few poor individuals who are pushing, asking for explanation. The rest of the majorities, they seem to be comfortable. Unfortunately, when citizens are not coming up in masses and demand what is entitled to them, they are actually contributing to the ultimate collapse of economic developments. You know, with corruption, with mismanagement, everybody ultimately becomes the victim, even though we know that the poor and the marginalized are always the immediate victims. Of course, greed, you know it very well. Because with corruption, and what we have observed is that it's not committed by the poor most of the time. It's not committed by those who do not have. Mostly are those who have, and they want more and more and more, and they never get satisfied. Again, media practitioners, sometimes when you are so weak as well, when you have this substandard of investigative journalistic professionalism, you only go for an article because you wanted it to sell tomorrow. After that, you forget to pursue that. You see? You are also doing injustice to the public. Because this is what I have observed as well. You see, they do not pursue issues to the final end. They just write an article this year. After 5 years, when they have got nothing to put in for the next day's paper, they call and say, oh, by the way, there was something in 2000. How far did you go with that? You see? When everybody else has forgotten about them. I think you are also doing injustice as far as that is concerned. That's why, while I'm appreciating that we are here tonight, I think especially in Namibia, a democracy like ours, we are late. We could have demanded a law on access to information sometimes long ago. Sometimes long ago. Because perhaps some other countries, either in the region or in the continent or elsewhere, they might think that Namibia is one of the countries that by now has a law on access to information. Because Namibia is one of the countries that does not hesitate to sign and ratify international conventions. Do we do that just for diplomatic window dressing, or what is going on here? There's a need for commitment, a serious commitment. I will not finish. The list is not exhaustive. I can't list everything that contributes to corruption. I just give you snapshots. And then the most fundamental requirement for ensuring an administrative system free of corruption is political commitment. Political commitment is very central to everything, even to this conference. When political commitment is not demonstrated to appreciate the efforts that are being made here, then the conference may not, it may not achieve its main purpose. And I'm talking about the commitment which must cascade from the highest authority down to all public structures of governance. Commitment is not only when the president commits himself. The president alone cannot make a big difference in the absence of other government structures. They need to show that commitment as well. Stakeholders, they need to show that commitment as well. And this is the same commitment which must be demonstrated in the passing of laws that provide for the prevention, the fight, and sanctions for either bribery, embezzlement, nepotism, favoritism, patronage, where you appoint those who are very close to you, no matter whether they can do the job or not. Conflict of interest, of course, and this is a serious matter, conflict of interest, because without access to information, you cannot successfully fight conflict of interest. Not at all. Because how will you expose this? It becomes not so easy. And corruption tends to deepen its roots in the society where transparency and accountability do not take precedence. I have already said that transparency and accountability presupposes good governance. We know very well that the Namibian Constitution guarantees freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And freedom of speech and freedom of expression is linked to access to information. You cannot divorce it from the other. No way. And at regional and international level, access to information is a fundamental human right issue. We know very well the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that gives every individual the right to seek access and to receive information from public bodies or private bodies that perform public function or utilize public funds. The United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which Namibia has signed, and not only signed, but also ratified. This one obliges state parties, including Namibia, to take appropriate measures to promote the active participation of individuals and groups, including civil society, non-governmental organizations, in the prevention and the fight against corruption. And also to raise public awareness. Mind you, how will you raise public awareness without information? It does not become possible. To raise public awareness with regard to the existence, the causes, and the gravity of and the threat posed by corruption. And it's said explicitly so that state parties are required to ensure that the public has effective access to information and enhance the transparency of and promote the contribution of public to decision-making process. This is the provision of the convention. I was not part of the convention when it was crafted. I believe none of you here. But it was found to be the right convention, the right message that must be conveyed to governments, to authorities, to make sure that access to information is readily available. If that is not enough, the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption also undertakes that civil society and the media must be fully engaged in the fight against corruption and related offenses. And this one even goes as far as saying that an enabling environment must be created for the civil society and the media to hold governments to the highest levels of transparency and accountability in the management of public affairs. That is the language of our own African Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption. And I do not imagine this to be possible without a legislation on access to information. Particularly Article 9 of that convention makes it an obligation for state parties to adopt laws that gives right of access to any information that is required to assist in the fight against corruption and related offenses. When Namibia signed and ratified this convention, Namibia did so without a single reservation. And by virtue of acceding to these conventions, the provisions of these regional and international conventions become part of our laws. Hence, Namibia is obliged to act in accordance with the letters and spirit of these very conventions. In conclusion, access to information, no doubt, helps to fight corruption. And the underlying principle in administering public affairs